Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka.
It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka. We are an anime podcast. Every 2 weeks, we come together to talk about an anime that we have just finished watching, and then we turn our discussion over to our listeners to discuss it like a book club. We are watching the second half of the first season of To Your Eternity. I say that because season 2 hasn't been announced, so we know there's a season 2 coming. This is episodes 13 through 20. So it's not even a full season, so it's going to be probably a shorter episode for us, but we have a lot to talk about and something we're going to announce as soon as I get done introducing everybody. So let's go on to that. First off, we have the squid to my game. Jeremy, how you doing?
I am doing pretty good. Still alive and kicking.
So you must have won.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to get all that money. I'm doing good. I have just been very, very busy on a super secret project, but I have had a little bit of time to watch My Name is Earl. I know, I'm always like...
A throwback, but a sitcom I remember loving when it was on a decade ago.
It is surprisingly good. I remember trying to start watching it a couple of times, and I was a little bit bored, but I never really got through the first episode. Holy cow, Randy is amazing. That guy cracks me up. The big heavy brother.
Ethan, he is fit now. If you see
Really?
current pictures of him, yeah, that guy is ripped. He got really healthy. I also love Crabman from that show.
Crabman's great. Hey, Earl. Yeah. So I gotta say, when it comes to like older sitcoms, I gotta give that one a 5 Bakas. That's really good.
I'm sure later seasons will disappoint you, but I'm glad you like it.
Probably true.
All right. We also have the Battle to My Royale 2. Jason, how are you?
Doing fantastic.
That's it. He's done. No more.
Done. I'll do this for him.
That was the last
I've been
straw.
playing Paths of Exile. The new patch is whack, but I put all my time into it and didn't do anything else ever. Did I cover it?
You've described my Friday, but I wasn't going to talk about that. No, so I've had Shadow of War, or is it Shadow of Mordor?
That's the first one.
No, Middle Earth Shadow of War.
Mm.
I've had that game for 5 years? Just sitting in my Steam, never installed it. Like, I bought it on a sale, just been sitting there. And I decided to pick it up because I played through Shadow of Mordor, which was fantastic. It's the Arkham style type of combat. And I love the storyline. And because there was so much bad publicity with the loot boxes and microtransactions when it first came out, never really bothered with it. I saw a tweet from them that they're actually removing that whole thing from their game, completely. Like, you can't even access the store anymore. I've been playing. It's a blast. The story's decent. Not as strong as the first one. But I got about 30 hours in, and I was going, hold on. I think I'm playing a mobile game, but with really good graphics, because it turns into a really bad grind fest.
Oh no.
Yeah, because you have to build up an army, which is great. But then you have to conquer a region, and then you have to move to a new region and basically start from scratch and build up a new army over and over again just to get to the next quest line to start the story again. I'm just like, oh, this is cool. It's a fun loop, but it's getting a little grindy. But yeah, 3 out of 5.
That's good to know, because I bought the second one as well when it was on sale at some point, and I haven't started playing it. So interesting.
It's worth at least the first 10 to 15 hours. It's really fun.
Cool.
All right. And my name is Troy, and I am also on this podcast.
You went to a play.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that in the next episode.
Well, then edit this outro.
So I watched season 2 of Ted Lasso. If you remember when I mentioned season 1, I said it was one of the best shows of that year. Season 2 was not any worse. It was great. I love Ted Lasso. I also love Mythic Quest, and I'm very upset that 2 of my favorite shows are now on Apple TV Plus because I don't want to have it a subscription for 2 shows, but they're also 2 of the best shows on. I've also been playing an old game, you guys. I've been playing the Mad Max game.
Oh, that's right.
Because there's something about stupid open world. It's grindy. You drive over here and pick up some scrap, and that checks that off the map. But I do that after a hard day of work, and I just get relaxed and blow up some cars. That game is fun. It didn't get as much hype as it probably should have. Probably because there was way too many open world games at the time. But yeah, it's fun.
I remember your funniest message was, I love driving a muscle car across the desert.
Yep. with spikes on the tires to rip off other people's tires and a shotgun to shoot at the gas tanks. That's just so
Cathartic.
relaxing. Yep. All right.
Nice.
Before we talk about To Your Eternity Part 2, though, it is time for Jeremy's big announcement. It's a Baka announcement, but it has been Jeremy's special project. He's been putting the most work into this. So I'm going to let him make the announcement.
Awesome. So we decided that it was time to update our website and come up with something that would be a little bit more useful, easier to navigate, maybe let you guys filter some episodes and get a look at some of the older episodes. We got a couple of messages where people were asking where the older episodes might be accessible. So we will have, hopefully at the time of this episode dropping, theanimebakaclub.com. And it is going to currently be in its beta state. I may not have all the episodes uploaded yet, but I will be working on it, even if they're not there. And the RSS feed, I'm going to transition it so that anybody who already is subscribed to the RSS feed shouldn't have to worry about anything. But I will make sure to mention it when we do. I'll send out a tweet letting everybody know, just in case, to double check, and I'll send out a test. But yeah, so we're really excited because the website is pretty much done. I just need to get the content in, and we'll be good to go.
Yep, this is a first step in our growth because we realized we've actually grown a lot more than we had actually realized, and so we want to take our podcast to the next steps. Nothing too serious, no major changes to our format or what we're doing here, but yeah, just taking those next step, making it easier for you guys. So I'm going to be mentioning the animebakaclub.com in every episode going forward. I probably will stop mentioning the email because there is a contact us page on that website that you can send us direct messages. So that would probably be an easier way. The old email I've mentioned every episode up till now will still work. In case you've been listening to old episodes, we did still get those emails, and they will still continue to come to us. But now you have a much easier way to reach out to us. And going forward, and just a great way to look through our episodes. Jeremy put on filters. You can see like what are Jason's 5 Baka's anime episodes, and I just want to listen to those episodes. What are his favorites, so I can know what to watch. Man, it is a cool website. You guys are hopefully going to dig it. But yeah, again, this is just step 1. But Jeremy's been putting in a ton of work, so I hope you guys do go visit it. And we'll talk to you guys over there too, I hope.
Yeah, eventually it would be kind of cool if we could get a forum going, but that would definitely be a later step.
And we do want to grow to Reddit and other places where we can just get more involved with the anime community as a large, and hopefully have more people for you guys to discuss the stupid things we say with, so you don't have to just yell it into the void.
Yeah.
Troy said something stupid again. Now someone can say, yes, he did. I agree with you, random commenter. All right. All right. So moving forward with our regular episode, we watched the second half of To Your Eternity, episodes 13 through 20. So we're going to give our non-spoiler reviews. Jeremy, what did you think of this half of the anime?
I enjoyed it. I don't think that it hit the same highs that the previous half hit, mainly because it tried to do a lot. 8 episodes is not much to work with, really. And so to be able to give you really strong arcs with as many characters as it tried to introduce, it's just not, I don't think it was enough time to accomplish things to the same level of quality and immersion that it handled in the first half. But I still really, really enjoyed it, and it ended on a very, very strong note.
All right, Jason, what'd you think?
I was really fond of this, and it really helped flesh out the progression of our main character. Because in the first half, I wasn't too fond of him, and this time I got really attached. It was interesting. You mentioned that it's like he almost has a new arc every few episodes. So the I like that they explore a bit more about the bad guy. We get some more questions about the higher leveled storytelling of what's going on in the overarchingness. So yeah, I really enjoyed myself on this one.
I mostly agree with Jason, but I actually also have some agreements with Jeremy. I don't think this arc is the strongest arc of the 3. I do think it also hurt it that I took a week in between watching the 2 arcs because there wasn't as many episodes here, and I wanted it to be more fresh for recording this in between the 2 weeks. So I waited a little, put some space between the 2 halves, and I do think that they did a disservice. At the end, though, as this arc was wrapping up, I saw connections to the other 2 arcs that I thought really strengthened them and made these whole 3 arcs a complete package in our main character's development. And I think it really elevated it for me. So I ended up enjoying it much more. But I will say, like, the side characters we meet in this arc, not as interesting, or I didn't feel as connected with as earlier characters who we had been meeting. But that's what happens when you have arcs. There's going to be better ones and worse ones either. I think as a whole, this still serves the greater story, and I do think To Your Eternity is definitely a must-watch anime. So I highly recommend it. And we were told by Gamer Dad, he's read the manga way farther ahead, and he says it's like 150 chapters right now. This story goes far. Which I want to talk about when we get to the end of, like, what do you think is down the road for, especially for the main character, but we'll say that for when we get to episode 20. All right. With that said, the opening and the closing were the same. But Jeremy, I know you noticed some new stuff in the opening. Do you want to talk about it, or do you want to wait till we get to that episode?
I just want to say that there was one character in the OP that I always wondered who it was, and I kept waiting for him to run into him. And little did I know, he ran into him at the very beginning. He was with him all along. And that was really cool. I love the way that they wrapped that into the story, but I can't really reveal more without it being a spoiler.
Jason, any thoughts for you?
No, very similar thoughts to the first one. I liked them both. The OP was much more strong, and the song felt very yeah. What I'm trying to think of a word and I can't think of it. So
beautiful, Kingdom Heartsy, amazing. I agree. The only thing I want to say is for
lounge.
This art.
Ah, yes.
It feels like lounge music.
Yep.
My thoughts is that at this arc, I've kind of caught on to your game, OP, and it did actually spoil some of the events of what's coming in this season, because I've learned to pick out, okay, this is the stuff that's not going to happen, but I'm going to want it to happen, and here's what's really going to happen. Look for the happy stuff. Okay, that can't be real. Look for the sad stuff. Okay, that's actually going to happen. So some things actually were spoiled at this point, which, I have to call it out. As much as I love the OP, I do have to call that out. All right, on to our spoiler section. Now we're going to be spoiling, and we'll probably be spoiling stuff from the first half, but I don't know why you'd be listening to the second half if you didn't the first half. But I've seen some view numbers. Sometimes that does happen. So okay, whatever. But yeah, spoilers for all of To Your Eternity season 1 coming, but especially episodes 13 through 20. And we start with our main character, the orb himself, Fushi, feeling sad about the events of, his big brother dying, or his best friend, who he thought of as a big brother. Gugu is dead, and he's feeling miserable. He also feels to blame. Your guys' thoughts on Fushi in this half?
I absolutely am loving this character just because of my infatuation with the slow burn character growth. We get a character that gets to learn how to walk and then how to talk, and now we've got existential crisis, and then later on we're gonna get like the meaning of good and evil and debates on what that means and who you can call good and evil, and like also like, are you responsible for death depending on a situation? Like, those are sweet, like, thought experiments to see well done in this kind of anime. And he's just this vehicle for that. And I'm really loving the writing. So yeah, really like this character.
Yeah, I really like how they clearly show the kind of behaviors that you would only expect from a character that is at his maturity level. And you really have to understand and remember his true age. And that can be really difficult with anime sometimes, because you see characters that either look too old or they look too young and they're supposed to be something else. And he is definitely in that group where he looks way older than he actually is. So there's different situations where, like, he's subjected to basically a situation where he has no choice, at least not any choice that he can perceive. So he has to suffer through some events. And at first I was sitting there wondering, is this right? Does this really feel like something that he would do, like this character would do? But then I remembered his age, and it's absolutely what he would do because he's just being pushed around, basically. So I thought they did a fantastic job not falling into the trap of, like, what would be cool, but instead sticking with what makes sense for this character. And that was very consistent.
Yep. Just to mirror you guys, the growth from where we were to where he is now, and even more so, like he leaps and bounds in maturity. It's also really fascinating to see his power exponentially growing, as he's like, literally, I can just poke myself with anything and be able to recreate it. And then he's also showing his own powers expanding just with, oh, you know what? I could actually make a thing grow out of me, inhabit that, and leave behind what I was. And that I was like, okay, well, he is exponentially growing. And then how do you deal with that going forward? How do you keep stakes for him? And really, just for the whole series, the exploration of both life through the lens of death is fascinating. And with him being this immortal and having to deal with death over and over again in many different forms, and killing, is there a cost for it? Is there a value for it? And having to come across all this stuff, like Jason said, amazing thought experiments that this show is doing through this character as an immortal being who's just kind of observing life, but also becoming self-aware and wanting to make changes and not just be an observer. He wants to experience and live. Fascinating stuff. Amazing.
You reminded me of something, and again, I just want to praise the writing for a second. They lean a lot into the audience getting it, and there's a great scene that does that, because he's thrown into a well and one of the characters comes back to save him, and he's already out of the well, and he looks at her like, duh, of course I escaped, basically looking at the audience going, I don't need to explain this to you, you probably already know what's going on. Or there's this part where he's like, oh, I can only make a lifeless corpse, and then, like you said, he's able to leave behind his body, because we've already established that. Like, the writing is so good. Anyways,
all right, so the first thing we see him do is have a after walking for 4 days, he calls out what he calls the man in black. It's not Will Smith. It's his creator, right? And he basically is like, what did you make me for? he's starting to have that existential crisis that was mentioned. And the Man in Black's like, you're here to collect data to preserve the world. And he's like, well, I don't care. And he's like, well, you have to care. He's like, well, I'm gonna turn into a fruit and just lay here on the side of the road and not do anything. And he and so I like that there is that he has the ability to change into inanimate objects, but if he does, he loses consciousness and then can't unchange. He actually can get stuck in these other forms. And the Man in Black has to like touch him and like wake him back up into a person and be like, no, you can't do that. I won't allow that to happen. He's like, fine, then make me stronger. He's like, no, I can't do that either. Even though it sounds like he could, but that's not how he wants this to go about. Man in Black, very, very mysterious.
Yeah, it sounds like he's more interested in letting Fushi develop mentally on his own to see what kind of a personality that creates. But I'm also curious about what he means by preserving the world, because it almost seems like just shapes for Fushi to transform into. Not necessarily preserving the world, but maybe preserving like a mimicry of the world through Fushi.
Well, he keeps
Baka.
Total sidebar here. It sounds like when he says preserving his experiences, gaining experience, it seems like there's some sort of force or committee or something that's like, you know what, this whole Earth thing's not going well, we're going to get rid of it. And this seems like data collection to counteract that. It really feels that way because he's like, well, I can't do that for you, but we do need to go forward with this mission because I need this data. Why does he need the data?
That's cool. I like that as like evidence to present before a court. That's cool.
Any good thoughts on Man in Black? Good, bad theories on him?
I love that he dodges the question.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
No, I'm totally fascinated with this character. He's basically a godly form to Fushi. He actually appears to one other character, which is fascinating as well. But we have no idea like what his end goal is, why he created Fushi. I mean, he gives some really dodgy answers, but yeah, who is this guy?
This anime does something with this character that I love, and I hate it when shows refuse to do stuff like this. Fushi tells everyone, he meets up with a character here in a little bit, and then later with the side characters we meet, he's just like, yeah, there's this Man in Black, and I see him sometimes, and he talks to me, and then those characters are asking questions like, well, do you think that's God? No, I don't think it's God. That doesn't sound like what's God? Yeah, that doesn't sound like him. He's a dick. Do you think he's the devil? I love that this show not only has him communicating that instead of keeping that close to the chest. They could easily do that. I'm not going to tell anyone about the Man in Black, and so he's stuck with his burden of not knowing himself. And so us as an audience is always like asking these questions, not getting anywhere. But he tells people, and they ask the questions the audience is asking. Okay, what is that then? is that God? That I love when shows are brave enough to do that, to not hold extra cards to their chest that they don't need to, that isn't realistic to do. Because you would, if you had the Man in Black talking to you and he's clearly giving you accurate information, you would turn to the person next to you and be like, you don't see him, do you? I need to tell you there's a guy here.
Yeah.
I just told me danger's 500 meters that way.
Yeah, and it is. So it proves he exists.
Right.
I do think on a technical level, there's the fact that he displaces ground when he comes up out of it has always made me wonder if that's a clue. Like, to what degree does he exist in the physical realm versus just in this other dimension that he exists in? And also, there is another character who I think I understand correctly that this other character assumed he was the Grim Reaper. That's the impression I got.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if that is true too, because he certainly responded to it.
Right.
So is he the Grim Reaper? Does he have something to do with like governing the souls after death? This particular half of the season exposed something that I didn't even realize about this anime until I went afterwards and I looked up on the wiki just some names of regions and stuff. And apparently one of the places that they visit, Jananda, it's called like the paradise of hell or something like that. And so the word paradise actually comes up a lot in this second half, and I didn't realize that was actually possibly an important thing that has something to do with maybe this Man in Black.
Right.
And
Right.
that's just an idea, but I'm wondering.
Even if he's not the actual Grim Reaper, he seems very aware of the process, like you said, of what souls are going through. He mentions things like paradise, and also has the ability to interfere with that process.
Yeah.
So, and then that brings us back to Fushi's question about him, and it's like, oh, okay, what is this guy? Yeah. All right. After their argument, Fushi actually smells someone familiar, and he runs off, and it's Piran, and she's decided to leave Booze Man and come with him on his journey just to be a help to him in the world. And at first he's like, no, I don't want you to come, because he's still feeling guilty about Gugu's death. He feels like if I had left Gugu would still be alive. I bring death and destruction with me because of the knockers, and they're still called the knockers, and we're just gonna move past that. I've shared my thoughts.
Those deadly knockers.
But we do need to talk about Piran, because she kind of goes from what was really a side character who just kind of got involved to now it's like the last remnants of his old family that is still with him. So your guys' thoughts on Piran?
Without spoiling too much, I love that they leaned into, there's a reason we met her in chains.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that, and how Fushi then later has to justify his relationship with her if he's so hostile to these other people. Again, the thought experiments in this are great. But yeah, she's a fantastic main character throughout this. I love what they do with her passing. Spoilers. But what I like is that with her, it wasn't an abrupt like arrow to the face or anything. She just dies of old age. When we get to that, that's going to be great to explore as well. So she served quite a few purposes, and she's hilarious to watch.
Yeah. I was a little bit sad during the tournament arc, which actually takes up quite a few of these 8 episodes, that she kind of was relegated off into a tower and off screen most of the time. Because I miss her. She is funny. Like, I'm shocked, because ordinarily when you watch an anime, how many times do you have like this really elderly character that just steals every scene they're in, right? With these belly laughs, or just the way they draw her eating food. It just cracks me up every time. Like, they really went all the way with this character to make her entertaining and funny and everything. And so I missed her. I definitely missed her there. And she served more as like you said, a part of a thought experiment, and also a catalyst to keep things going and to give Fushi a reason to keep moving forward. But, you know, that's going to happen. Stories need reasons to move forward. And so I don't hold that against them at all. But I did miss her.
Yeah, she's fantastic. And it's such a surprise that she came back, right? Because they could have easily had that character go away. The fact that she's just this random character who gets tied up in Fushi's life,
Yeah,
and then becomes so essential to him. I had mentioned in our last episode a theory about like there's Fushi with a god, Fushi with his mother, Fushi with his brother. Piran really serves that grandparent role, still loving and caring, maybe, but not in the same way as like a parent is, but then also on their in. And I say this with having lost grandparents, but at the end, they need to be taken care of too. There becomes this switch that happens with grandparents. Jeremy, you had mentioned in the pre-show how they show her going senile and how real that was, and how hard that is, and that's a real life thing that they put Fushi through with this character, but also didn't ruin her because of it either, and it made it so emotional, so poignant. We'll obviously explore it more when we get to that part, but yeah, what they do with this character is amazing.
And it's fascinating that this dude in black, he continually warns Fushi about the deterioration of mankind, and that. But it's funny because he goes, "Why didn't you understand? I informed you about this before," except his informing is, here's this overarching idea that you just need to apply to everything. And talking with my own teenagers, I know that's not a thing that can happen. You have to be specific. So
Sometimes you probably even have to see it.
right.
I
Yep.
also love the Men in Black when he mentions humans choosing death, and he doesn't specifically mean suicide, especially because we see a lot of characters do sacrifice or even just partaking in a death battle.
I miss those too.
And I found that really interesting. Especially again, this is a look at life through the lens of death, or maybe even just more a look at death and its important role in life. But that comment, I kept coming back to that comment as characters were making decisions and stuff, and how Fushi is very resistant to that idea because he doesn't have that choice and he can't fully grasp it either.
Right.
All right, let's go forward in the story. They do some traveling. The knockers have not been moving. We find out from the Man in Black they've gone into basically hiding. And while they're traveling together,
And he's still missing. He's still missing Marsh and the bear, right?
yeah,
Or
March and the bear are missing. They decide to go on a boat and go traveling by boat. And when they're getting on a boat, a young woman's like, "Oh, that's the wrong boat. Come over here. I'll help you onto this boat." And she separates the two of them. And the next thing you know, Fushi is thrown into a cage with a bunch of other men. And I'm like, "Oh, slaves? This is slaves? It's not slaves." And he's branded, which heals instantly. And then he's shipped off. And so basically they're sent to Australia. It's an island penal colony where they send murderers and the worst of the worst to, but also the people there are living and having families, and so now there's descendants of those original prisoners that live on this island. And Fuji gets there, and like one guy sees him goes by, he's like, "Wait, you don't have a brand on your hand. You're not supposed to be here. There's a mistake." And then the girl's like, "Oh no, I'll take care of it, sir." And she grabs Fushi and she runs off with him. And he's like, "Wait, no, you're the one who tricked me. You took Pierre in. I want my friend. Where is she?" And this girl, she's like, "Oh, don't worry about it." But he runs off. He's trying to climb this wall to get to Pierre, but he doesn't have March for climbing ability anymore. So he actually climbs up with like spears and he falls down and dies. And all these kids come up and find him regenerating, and they try to befriend him. And this girl from before is the leader of these kids, and her name is Tomari, and she's kind of our secondary main character of this arc, just like Gugu was before and March before that. So what did you guys think of Tomari?
I instantly thought, okay, now I know who's gonna die. Interesting take on an anime child like main character. And I think that's one thing I can say about this anime. Very, very few tropes. And it's very refreshing. This kid, which comes off very tropey at the beginning just because of attitude, they peel off a couple layers on this character, and it's very nuanced. You have a really bad experience and really bad circumstances that someone's trying to make the best of, but then ends up justifying certain either thought processes or things we might find detestable as, hey, that's the way you survive. Yeah, man, the thought experiments in this one. Really interesting character. I didn't think I first couple episodes with her in it, I did not like her. And then as we got going into it, I was like, wow, this is a really complex character that these guys have written once again. Like you said, not as strong as the previous characters, but I really did enjoy this one.
Yeah. If I could simply define her, I would probably say pragmatic to a fault, but very well justified. I love her backstory. I think her backstory is really, really cool. love what they did with her dad and with her perception and whether, that was really cool. And we'll get into it a little bit when we go into her as a character in the events and stuff. But I have a little bit of trouble with her in relation to how the prison colony is comprised of 50% criminals and 50% criminal family. And yet these criminals, which many of them are not just like, I stole a loaf of bread because I'm starving or something. A lot of them are murderers and a lot of them are rapists. And so there's a point in this anime where she becomes a leader of these people that are known to kill their leaders every couple weeks. And I just find it so hard to believe that a 14-year-old girl is going to survive and continue to lead them where everybody else that has done so will die. Among so many prisoners like this that are so vicious, I can't imagine her surviving long. So there's some issues due to the context of the situation where it doesn't feel believable to me.
I had the same thought. So did the anime, because they have her call it out. She goes, I'm going to do my best, but I am just a 14-year-old girl. But it does seem like, okay, we're totally going to stop murdering each other right now. Yeah. And we all just know that no matter how big a thing happens that should redeem humans or make them realize, I should change my ways, there's always going to be that selfish, horrible person in the background who's like, yeah, no, I'm totally going to murder her tonight.
Yeah.
And that's just reality.
Especially when
they're going to be taking in more prisoners as well. I mean,
exactly.
That's not going to stop.
And especially when the basket of people that we're looking at here are already the ones that would do this. It's not like regular people we're talking about either.
But I did end up liking this character in the end. At first, and really as far as a character, I guess I don't really feel that attached to her. I don't think she's that strong of a character. Her purpose in the story, she is a reflection of Fushi, going through very similar issues. Like Fushi's really dealing with about killing right now, and she's, that's something that's a big deal for her. Is, do killers deserve to live? And wait, should I be killing them? And who should be killing who? The cost of killing, the reward of killing. But also there's more, which we'll get to in, I think, episode 19. But her serving as a reflection of Fushi, for Fushi to see and help him grow past where he's been, was phenomenally done. Especially since I think it is subtle, but also I do think it's there, and so I think the character is great. But I don't want to spend more time with the character. I'm good. She served her purpose in the story. I'm ready to move on. Even though she hints she'll be back later someday, maybe.
Mm-hmm. I had a flash of Cells at Work Code Black when she's like, "Oh, just smile and it'll be fine." If you just smile, you'll get through your day. Just suppress your emotions.
Best character ever.
All right. When Fushi yells at her, she is basically like, "There is a way off the island. We have a tournament arc." Not really. But yeah, there's a death battle tournament on this island, and the winner becomes the leader of the island, and they can do whatever they want, including leave with whoever they want. But it never works out that way because someone always kills the leader.
Yep.
All right. So he joins the death battle. The first round is just a free for all. Everyone whoever wins survives each a round of a bunch of people murdering each other gets to go on to the actual tournament. Fushi doesn't even get out the door, and so he's not attacked at first, and all these guys kill each other. And then the last guy, he comes up and starts stabbing him with all these different weapons. And Fushi's like, "What do I do? If I don't die, everyone's gonna know about my powers." Yeah. But I also don't want to lose because I want to escape. And he just kind of stands there stunned in indecision. And then
with weapons sticking out of him and an axe splitting his head down the center.
Yep.
And then apparently this guy is so drunk that he just passes out. So Fushi's the winner.
So I thought that was kind of weird. It didn't feel right to have the guy suddenly say that. I think it would have made more sense to me if he just passed out because he was so freaked out about what had happened, rather than trying to justify it with a statement. I don't know. It just felt odd.
I had thought maybe like a previous injury, like he'd already been bleeding out, and since he didn't get help, something like that would make a lot more sense. This kind of seemed a little silly.
Yeah.
I got super drunk before this tournament, killed everybody, and then got blackout.
Yeah, exactly.
As the winner of his round, he is Fushi is kind of exalted. He's a possible leader now, so everyone wants to meet him and talk to him. Plus, he's an immortal now. Everyone knows that, so he's kind of a big deal. And the kids, and I should mention there's other kids besides just the ones I mentioned. There's a larger boy named Uroi. Not a huge fan of that name. Too close to mine. Mia, who's got red hair and uses a chair, which I think was my favorite.
That was so weird.
They all have like swords and bows, and she's like chair of justice.
Yeah.
I was hoping it was a steel chair. But...
Yeah. Sendel, who's a little boy.
Oh no, that's the boy with the bow, right?
Yep, the boy with the super bow. Upa, who's a girl with one eye, has one eye covered, and she uses a blow dart. And then they have an owl named Ligard that Fushi wanted to kill at one point because he's realized I can only turn into living beings that die. He can, if he creates a living version of something that's still alive, it just comes out dead.
Mm-hmm. So one thing that's really weird to me is that thought crossed his mind. Does that mean that he is capable of turning into any creature that he wants to that's dead? Because up to this point, it's been things that stimulate him or something like that. But this seems like a premeditated, I'm going to kill that so that I can change into it. That doesn't seem like an emotional experience. That's...
You know, you had mentioned in the last episode that his powers work based on how he perceives his powers to work. And I still 100% think that's the case. Because they seem to suddenly, like, the rules seem to bend whenever he wants them to. Or expand whenever he wants them to. And I'm like, I think your powers don't work exactly the way you think they do. I think you just think they do. Yeah, which is a beautiful thing too, to have a character have to learn his true powers and misunderstand them because he's so unique.
I actually really like it. It's a sort of unreliable narrator in a way. There's a point later where he creates a massive inanimate object, and that one really got me thinking because up to that point, you know, I guess it hadn't really clicked in my mind, but the things that he created weren't always just one item. And I mean, of course, I'm not talking about the clothing because that's its own can of worms. But but when he would create objects that are more than one component, right? So like, let's say you have a spear and it's got a spear head and then it's got the spear body, right? He's creating an object that's touching another object. How is it that it's considered to be one object? It's got to be just perception based. So same thing with a boat.
he also, he can also make food, even though the food never hurt him. He made the food because he just really wanted food. Yeah. So he thinks he has to be hurt by it, but that doesn't make sense why he can make pears so often. He never got, well, I guess he got hit in the head by one.
Well, I guess. But what about the bowl of soup? Like, how did he get hurt by soup? Was it just the drug?
And then the stick.
But that was for the stabbers. Yeah.
Is there anything he makes that he eats that we know hasn't hurt him? But that's poison. I think. Yeah, poison. I think that gives you a gray area at least to qualify it.
Yeah, it's hard to know.
Well, but it's funny that we're talking about the minutia of like the parts of things that he makes, but like my hang up is there's no cost to it. Oh. Like endless arrows with gunpowder in them. But at no cost to himself or the things around him, just out of thin air. That really bugged me.
Someone doesn't play Minecraft in creator mode.
No, I don't. That is sacrilege.
I guess to me that one is okay because I've kind of already explained him as Clark Tech, right? So he's already something that's so far advanced that it's breaking the laws of physics and thermodynamics as we know them. So I'm okay with that part, but trying to understand like if he can make. Let's take a boat, for instance. A boat is comprised of many, many planks held together by nails and glue and whatnot, right? All the different pieces. If he's touching a certain part of it, where does that boat stop? Does it stop with the boards? Does it stop with the nails? Does it stop with the ground that it's touching? What about the water if it's in water? What
Why
about
are
the
you-
air?
Why are you asking these questions when you just hand waved the laws of thermodynamics?
Because one,
You've just lost any
No.
credibility for
No,
this
that's-
argument.
because there's two distinct issues here. With the law of thermodynamics, you're talking about production of mass. With the other one, you're talking about the rules of how you use the mass that you've produced.
And I think Troy's right that he doesn't understand his powers.
Yes, and I agree with that. I agree with that.
And that's technically Jeremy's theory from last time. I'm
Yeah.
agreeing with Jeremy here.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
then I agree with Jeremy.
Yeah. Hey, it happened again.
Hey,
But-
also, hi Weeds, we're lost in you. We'd like to go back to the story now.
I know. I just want to say that this was something that was bugging me, and that is the only solution I have, is that it's entirely perception based. I don't see how else it could work. So all the rules have to be transitory.
All right. They give Fushi a tour of the island. He sees men who were hanged for doing bad stuff on the island because they do their own self-justice there. And he sees all these smiling faces of these kids who are like, yeah, we're going to escape here and it's going to be awesome. And he's like, there's dead men 5 feet from us, because death to him is the most horrible thing he's ever experienced, the death of people. So he just cannot handle. But like you said up here, and they're like, yes, she killed like 10 people. And he's like, no, she's not like you guys. I'm not like you guys. I'm out of here. And then he talks with the man in black, and the man in black's like, yeah, it's fine to kill people. People die all the time. Just kill them. Who cares? And then he falls asleep outside on his own, and this scarred-faced woman comes up and licks his face.
Oh.
Her name is Hayase. She's back, baby.
And you know what I immediately thought of? Oh yeah, Troy said this would probably be the love arc, right? Because he's had God, parents, sibling. Now it's time to meet love.
And it kind of is, because there's two
There's two
people
love
in this who
interests.
clearly like him in this. One
There's-
unhealthy and one healthy.
There's almost 3, but the third one doesn't come till after this arc.
All right. Oh, I think I know what you mean.
Ah.
Very anime.
Yes.
All right. We need to talk about Hayase, who is back and way crazier than ever before, but just as evil and horrible. Your guys' thoughts?
Kind of saw it coming, and I love every minute of it. I'm not a big fan of her taking what seems like multiple mortal wounds, and then she just gets up and she's fine. I think that irked me a bit. But besides that, her crazy was a welcome addition to this arc. And I love that she's doing it on an island that's basically lawless, so she can get away with whatever she needs to do to get him off the island. Because that's all she's here for. She's here for him.
Yeah. One of the things that bugged me at first, but I was okay with it afterwards because it did make sense. It just had to be explained, was how she was able to dodge the bear and she was able to deal with every fighting tactic that he used. And her one phrase that she said during that fight made sense of the whole thing, which was, you may be able to regenerate, but you're kind of fickle, you're kind of fragile, and flimsy. I can't remember the exact word, but it was an F word.
Yep, she definitely wanted to F word him.
Yep. but I did think that her art was kind of weird. And I know that she's changed a lot. It's been years. She's got scars. She's got long hair. Character's in a totally different outfit. But it didn't look like the same character to me. Like the eyes and the face structure just looked so different. So she's really been screwed up by what she's been through. But yeah, she's pretty nuts.
I think her plan worked a little too easily, and it was kind of a have your cake and eat it too, as far as what she manipulated the island into doing. She's like, I'm not going to be your leader. That little girl's your leader. But also, I get all the guards in the palace, and you all will do whatever I say anyway. It's kind of
leader.
Yeah. That doesn't work for me. However, making Hayase what I clearly think is going to be the main villain antagonist to Fushi's arc, and going the Venom route, which is what
Yeah.
they've done. They went Venom, and it's beautiful, and it makes me so excited for the future of this series, is to have someone out there with really similar powers who loves you so much they just want to take you for themselves all the time. Oh, that's gonna be cool. So
They just
I'm
want to
very
consume you.
yeah. While I felt her plot was a little, like I said, a little have your cake and eat it too. I think her as a villain is fantastic, and I'm down for it. Yeah, but she doesn't do anything besides lick him here. He actually gets attacked by a little mole later, and instinctively reacts and defends himself and kills it, and then feels bad about it,
He
but then
doesn't get
realizes
attacked.
it
He's in
bites
his
him.
dog.
Well, he's digging.
No,
and
he's in his
nips
dog
him.
form, and he hears something rummaging in the ground, and he instinctively just bites it and kills it.
I thought it bit like he was sniffing at it and it bit him, and so
Yeah, I got the impression it nipped him.
Oh, okay, maybe it did. I didn't get
he just again either way he kills it, but not on purpose. He didn't want to kill it. He apologizes to it immediately after, but then he's like, "Oh, I can become a mole and I can dig under the thing."
I love that how when he does turn into it, he's like, I can't see very well.
Yeah.
However, he's then grabbed by Lagarde, the owl, and dropped into the tournament that he's supposed to be fighting in. He's losing the fight. He tries to cover himself and he uses weapons for armor. He just grows like axes
I
and
love
swords
that.
off his body
That is so
as
cool.
armor. But he's trying not to. He doesn't want to kill, so he's just kind of standing there. And then he gets a new form, and it's Perona. And now he's really he can do martial arts and knocks out the fighter. But that means Perona died.
Yeah.
But then we learn, you can turn into anything as long as it died. He doesn't have to know it died.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, that was so sad when that
I
happened.
know.
Oh my gosh.
And empty, because with everyone else we got like Gugu died as a hero, choosing to sacrifice himself for the person he loved. We find out later how Perona died, but we're just like, oh, hey, remember that character you guys loved? Dead now.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it later.
Yeah, and finding out later actually made it worse, in
Yes.
my opinion.
Yep.
Oh.
So yeah, now he has this new form. Afterwards, Tamari apologizes to him, but he's still upset with her because they asked him to eat with him, and he gets mad at her. They want him to drink cow blood, which is a thing. There's
It is.
cultures. There are cultures that are that's definitely a thing.
Yep.
He turns into the mole. He goes to Piran's cell. He can't actually get to her little window in the cell, but he's able to talk to her finally. And she's like, "You should go." He's like, "Yeah, but you're in a cell." She's like, "I've been in a cell before. This is not my
belong
first prison."
here, actually.
Yeah, this is. I kind of deserve this. It's fine. You should protect yourself and go. And he refuses to do that. Then in the next round of the tournament, he wins, and the crowd's like, "Yeah, kill him!" And he's like, "No, I won't kill him." So the crowd starts throwing things to kill this opponent, and he protects the opponent, but eventually an arrow does get through. And then after the tournament, he talks to this guy, and the guy's like, "Yeah, I'm doing this for my little brother. I'm trying to get him off the island." And Fushi's like, "Oh wow, I'm really glad I didn't kill you, and I promise if I win, I will get you off the island." And then the villagers come up and they're like, "Hey, Immortal, knock it off with the not killing. This is lame. Not what we came for." It's like being mad at your football team for not scoring and only winning with defense. I'm bored. Make it cooler.
Are you not entertained?
But then the island shakes and the knocker is back in its bear form and it attacks him. So Fushi tries to fight it on his own. As a mole, he can get inside it, but he gets thrown out.
We also learned why it died in the water last time.
Right, because he had heated the rocks and then they cooled rapidly and became brittle.
Yep. Never
took
occurred to me because I did not realize that the fire was outputting that much heat. But okay. Wow.
Yeah, and the islanders end up all helping. Those kids all run in to help. They have explosive arrows, and then he touches them so that he can now produce explosive arrows. And they're like, "Yeah, we're running out of gunpowder." He's like, "Here's a bunch," and he just makes a pile of explosive arrows. They tie its hands with like catapult ropes.
Yep.
And they explode this thing to death, and they kill it. And he gets back March and the bear. He's like, "Oh yeah, now that I got the bear, tournament in the bag." Yep. And then he thanks his new friends, and this really changes the relationship dynamic with these children of the Islanders that he's hanging out with. He sees them as friends. They have a celebration that night. He explains to them how his powers work, and he makes them all food, except for he makes the ramen that he had that poisoned him. So it still has poison in it because he only knows how to make it the way it was served to him. So he ends up knocking everybody out. He finds Tamari's journal, and we get Tamari's backstory, which was that her father was accused of murdering her mother and sent to this island, and she believed her father was innocent, so she went with him. And then he entered the tournament to get them off, and she saw how much he loved killing. And it's great because it's like clearly her father has won, and she's like, "He died. Where did he go?" And she's like searching through the piles of bodies for hours for her dad, even though he was clearly the winner, because she just refuses to accept and recognize her father as this killer. Because that would also mean he probably killed her mom. And then she goes to the boat she was supposed to meet him at, and there's this journal that he leaves as a birthday present. And then he walks up to her and dies from poison. And these two guys are like, "Oh, good, we poisoned him." And she just walks away like it never happened. Doesn't even recognize it, and is like, "I'm writing in my journal now." That was intense. Guys, do you think the dad's a murderer?
I don't think so.
It's implied a little bit, but it's also implied that he may have been falsely accused. The problem is that we get no context around any sort of investigation.
Right.
So
yeah,
and we just there's a lot of doubt there. I mean, sure, there's grounds to be like, "Oh, he loves killing, so maybe he did kill mom." We just don't know.
Yeah,
and we never will.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, I mean, this is from the perspective of a little kid writing in their journal about what they saw, right? So was he happy because he was loving killing, or was he really happy because he survived and now he could get them off the island? How would a
Fushi
child
points that
differentiate
out.
between those? Did she point that out?
Fushi points that out later. Like maybe he was just happy because he won.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And the fact that he was trying to get his daughter probably off the island, I'm assuming that the fact that that journal was on a boat means that he was coming down there to leave with her. I'm guessing, but that seems like what was going to happen. So yeah, it's hard to know. It's impossible to know. But I think I'd place my money against it. I don't think he was the killer.
This scene that he knocks everyone out, though, also establishes that she's got some sort of resistance to these tranquilizers. Because she wakes up like super soon before everyone else.
That's one of the reasons why I was like, "Oh yeah, they need to kill her so that he can get that resistance."
There's a little more backstory. She basically meets up with the other kids and befriends them, and they became kind of their own family unit. And then she's been working ever since then on an escape plan from the island, and has started working on the boats that bring prisoners to the island. And that is why. Oh, and actually, it was Hayase who told her, "Hey, get that Fushi guy on the boat, and it'll work out for you. That's what you want to do." And that's how this whole thing started. Because it did seem very random when it just a random. Clearly, I thought it was a con when they were pulled on.
Yeah, so did I.
But yeah, it was all Hayase's super brilliant plan.
Well, and come to find out that this whole prisoner thing on the island is totally on the up and up with the government. Like, when they were like, "Oh, he doesn't have a mark, take him back," they were serious. They weren't like, "Haha, we got another one, boys."
And the government has agreed to let them govern themselves, and like they get to sail ships off and on as much as they want.
Yeah, like this is a legitimate operation.
So that was one of the reasons why I was like, I don't understand exactly what's going on with this prisoner place. So I looked up Jananda, and I tried to read a little bit about like just what is this place. And I'm happy to say that I didn't wind up getting spoiled on anything, because all it did was told me the history of it up to that point very briefly. Apparently, the kingdom that founded Jananda is not around anymore. And so what Jananda is like a self-governing entity that goes out and collects prisoners from various kingdoms and brings them back. So it's just like this respected independent country sort of where all the prisoners go. It's really weird, but at the same time a cool idea.
Oh, so it's privatized prison system.
There you go. Yep.
All right, moving on.
Okay.
He goes and he visits Puran. Now that he has March's form, it's easy for him to get to her cell, and with the mole, he's able to get inside the cell. Tells her, I'm going to win the tournament. I'm going to get you out of here. It's all going to be great. He's feeling very confident. Goes to the final round of the tournament. He gets to absorb the blowgun into his inventory. And then he goes out to fight the final opponent, and it's Hayase. And she admits, "Hey, do you like your new form? That was from me. I went and murdered Perona. I did a really bad job of it, though. I was like trying to mess up her face, and then that was taking too long. So then I cut her head off. I was just really bad about it. Anyway, how does that make you feel?"
At this point, I was like, wow, Troy, you called it. You remember? You were like, she looks really pissed right now. I wonder if everybody in that village is dead.
Yeah. So she does this to basically put him into a berserker mode. He keeps trying to attack with all his forms, and she beats every form he has. Turns into the bear, she rips his eyeball out. She's one step ahead of him, and then she uses the same poison she had used before, but in a little dart, stabs him with it, knocks him out, wins the tournament, and then tells the crowd, "I'm actually his caretaker. The Immortal is here to help you guys. I need you to be his army to help him. I don't want to be your leader, so I'm going to make that little girl over there the leader. It's Tamari, and we'll go from there." So the crowd is instantly like, "Find Tamari. Let's kill her." Because that's what we do to leaders. We're not letting a 14-year-old girl be our leader. Meanwhile, she goes and has all these guards and a palace, and she takes Fushi there.
Do bad things to him.
Do bad stuff to him.
Yeah. Okay, so there's one really cool thing about this, and it seems to imply that he's got like a psychic connection with all of the people around him, because even though he's in a sort of dream state, it's overlapping almost one for one with reality most of the time, right? So he's got a lot of characters in it that aren't alive anymore or aren't near him, but then he also has these characters intruding on those situations or those engagements that are doing exactly what they're doing in the real world in his dream. And I wonder what that means about his psychic connection to other creatures.
So, not to get too graphic, I'm just wondering, is this a just straight up lustful relationship, or a like intense I must have you possessive relationship, or does she just like want to take advantage of him because she thinks that having an immortal baby would be cool?
I actually, when the scene happened, I actually thought it was that last one. After
That's
the
what I
boat
did.
Scene, after the boat scene, I think it's the first two together,
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So she's just possessive.
possessive and lustful. Because I thought, she was like, yeah, I'll just make an immortal baby, and then I'll have full control of my own immortal. Yeah, that's not it.
Nope. She just wants him.
Which then begs the question, does he have that capability? But yeah. Anyway.
Maybe if a baby poked him, he could duplicate that. Maybe it probably wouldn't be immortal.
I don't know why they only did 20 episodes, but after this episode, I feel like budget ran out somewhere, because this episode is ugly in its drawing, like immensely so. Faces get really weird and misshapen, and then there's a lot of like the little cutout long distance away and just a little shape of people talking and moving rather than close up. The action is almost all off screen.
I
But
love
it
that there's
went
like
back up after this episode, so I just must have cut cost here.
yeah. I love that there's scenes where they need to imply action, and so that's a still shot of like a lot of people with their arms up and everything, and then the camera just kind of wiggles,
Yeah,
as it scrolls up.
yeah.
Like,
I said
okay.
a couple times, like still shots with camera movement. Yeah,
Yeah.
and Tamari's face, like she had like a different shaped face every time she was on screen. I was like, what's happening? Has this been happening? I didn't notice it anywhere else but this episode. But this episode was rough. Anyway, back to the story. Yeah, he's in a dream talking to like Booze Man and the girl from the last Gugu's girlfriend.
Gugu's
He's
brother.
back in Booze Man's
Gugu's
house.
brother, yeah, and he's in Booze Man's house. None of them are dead, so it's
Mhm.
not the spirits. Like, remember we had thought March's spirit might be following him around and stuff.
Mhm.
None of the spirits are there. Hayase shows up, starts molesting him in the dream, but she's actually molesting him in real life. But she has more clothes on in the dream.
Yeah.
And he's sleeping, or he's still, under the tranquilizer.
No, he's not. He's under Hayase.
So Mari shows up in the dream because they have broken into the mansion, all the kids, and they're coming to save him. And so he wakes up, but Hayase is hiding. And then the kids get past guards. They see him in the room. They break into the room, but only Hayase is there now. And she's like, yeah, we had him taken to the underground cell. You'll never find him. The captain of the boat that Tamari works for, he's like, hey, guys, just listen to her, do what she says, and don't mess with stuff. She shoots the owl with an arrow.
Mhm. But apparently it's just a grazing wound.
Just a grazing wound. And then all of a sudden, Fushi shows up with a sword to her throat. And we find out that Fushi had created the mole out of his human body leg and then possessed the mole, and then the human body died. And then they took
Which
away.
looked creepy too, because it showed the eyes like he gasped and he's like,
Right.
yeah.
Oof.
Yeah. So then he was the mole, snuck up behind her while they took away the dead body, but he offers, hey, you let these children leave safely, and I'll stay behind for whatever you want to do with me. I don't care. So Hayase agrees to that. Tomari, as the leader of the island, declares that all children under 7, her and her friends and Puran are all leaving the island. And she also tells the one fighter who had the little brother from earlier that he gets to leave too. And then they go and they say goodbye to Fushi, and they're about to get on the boats, and Hayase knocks everybody out.
I don't understand this at all.
This is just like an extra middle finger, I guess. I don't know what this was. She poisons Fushi again, and then knocks everyone out. They wake up tied into the boat to go where they wanted to go in the first place.
Exactly. I was incredibly confused by this, but it gets worse.
Anyway, Tamari wakes up, tells her boss who's there to untie her and to help her escape, which he does. And the captain also helps her escape, so he apparently isn't on the side of Hayase. He says,
I think he's on his own side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She takes a boat back to the island, and that's where the end of the bad animation. And she drops a rope with a letter and a glove down because they threw Fushi down a hole in a cell. And so she drops the thing down into the hole, and it's like, hey, turn into the mole and I'll pull you up. And then he's behind her and he's like, what are you doing? And he's like, yeah, I'm Fushi. I can turn into whatever I want, and I just escaped. They put me in dirt, and I'm a mole when I want. It didn't matter. I said, March is climbing a building. Like, yeah, you can't.
Then he gets pissed at her, like, why are you here?
Yeah.
I did all that work to get you off the island, and here you are.
You're just one more life I have to worry about.
I do like that he said he escaped because he got bored. It wasn't like, oh, I'm in danger, or oh, I gotta foil these plans. She was just like, yeah, no, this sitting down here is not for me. I'm out.
Well, there's a shot of him like mid transformation, and he's just looking up, like going,
they go to the rowboat to leave the island. Puran had told him where she would wait for him, but a storm is coming. And he's like, "It's fine, we'll just get in the boat." She's like, "No, we can't go during a storm. I'll die." So they get in a cave and they talk about the man in black. They talk about her father. They talk about have they been corrupted by being around killers. Anything else that they mention? Not that I remember. And then at the next day, Tamari says her dream has been to escape the island. She decides she wants to have a new dream, which is to live together with all of her friends and Fushi and Puran and be a family.
And so we know that's not going to happen.
Right. Especially since it's shown in the OP.
Yeah, exactly.
When she said that, I was like, oh, she's going to die soon.
Yeah, exactly.
I love the guards discovering that Fushi has escaped, and then Hayase comes up, and they're like not telling her.
Yeah.
But she gets distracted because something's wrong in the village, and then the man in black also warns Fushi the knockers are attacking the village, and he decides to go back, even though Tamari doesn't want to. And if you were paying attention to the OP, you should have seen this coming. The knockers have figured out how to animate dead bodies and create zombies. Those tentacles can go inside you. We saw them try it with Gugu, and now they figured it out. So that giant.
Here's a question for you.
But
so up to this point, it's been one knocker attacks him and takes on a bunch of different forms
at a time. Yes.
And it seemed like every single zombie had its own knocker.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So does that mean there was like hundreds of knockers here this time?
That's the impression I got. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the impression I got as well. So that's like a little bit of a step in escalation.
Because I thought it was going to be like, oh, find the core and then we'll end this knocker attack. But then they're like, no, the core is inside every single body.
Yeah, it's attack on zombie. But I thought this was really cool because the knocker, every time the knocker dies, it comes back having learned from its death, right? So what did it learn from the last death? Numbers make a difference, right? Even though he couldn't defeat it by himself, getting all these villagers to help. So the knocker's like, I'm going to get some villagers. Let's go to the death pile.
And I'll be honest, we're not watching a scary anime for Halloween, which might have passed by the time this releases, I'm not sure. Yeah, I think so. But this was scary. This is very creepy, good zombie-ish story. Yeah, it worked for me. Also, you don't kill them by chopping off heads. You have to find the core inside the body and stab it, which they seem to have relative success doing. So he battles the first one, manages to kill it. Actually, Tamari officially stabs the core, so Tamari came back to help him, and then all the other children are also back. And Jeremy, I'm guessing you have a problem with that, like how they got there so fast when there was a storm.
Yeah, yeah, they were on the boat. There's absolutely no explanation for how they got back. There's like one line later where they're like, "Oh, we came back," and I'm like, there's more to this. Like, and that's where I think it's got to be the 8-episode issue. I'm sure there was more of an explanation. I'm sure it just got cut or dropped or something.
We should also mention Piran didn't come back.
Yeah.
And if they had taken a rowboat, they would have been caught in the storm.
Yep.
So, yeah, I actually had that thought, and I'm like, I can't figure out how they actually got here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Teamster was a friend of mine, and had him pick me up and drop me off. All right. That's from Space Jam 1.
Okay.
For you kids out there with your LeBron James Space Jam. Gross. All right. They do a pretty good job of fighting off these zombies. And they're like, okay, we just got to get to the death pit where all the people who die in the fighting tournaments are kept. And then we should be able to take out this knocker invasion. They run off. But little Upa falls down, tripped on a tentacle, and the tentacle pierces her skin. And now she is infected. And now she's a knocker zombie. And Mia goes to help her up, and she stabs Mia with a spear through the side. And so they grab up Mia, and they all run off. And the man in black's like, if you run for 6 minutes over there, you'll be safe for 3 minutes. And I was like, I would need a much longer rest after running for 6 minutes straight.
Yeah, exactly.
they get there and they're like, what do we do to help Mia? They're like, Fushi, do something. He's like, here's a needle, here's a bowl, here's some food, here's the things I can make. He's like, no, use like a healing power. And he's like, I don't have that. I don't save people. I cause people to die. And he gets all bummed.
I bet he does have it and just doesn't know it yet. I mean, think about this. If he can create flesh, I wonder if he can create flesh that like merges onto other flesh from other people.
He's gonna be very upset if he finds that out.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I did like the conversation they had during this because they're like, do we pull out the spear? No, if we pull it out, she's going to bleed all over. But if we leave it in, she's just going to die. They're completely helpless. And I mean, that's very realistic for this kind of situation.
Knocker Upa eventually finds them. He goes to kill her, but can't bring himself to do it.
Even though she's already dead.
Yeah, gets stabbed and loses that form by the tentacle. Tomari and I forgot the little boy's name. They run off. The boy with the bow. Uroi is carrying Mia. He gets caught. They get caught by a tentacle. Mia's getting infected, and he's getting infected. He cuts off his own arm to stop the infection, and then tells Fushi turn into a mole, picks him up and throws him to the owl so that they can go to the pit, and then they all die.
Yep.
Well, Mia and him.
Yeah, Mia and him die. Fushi, the boy, and Tamari get to the pit. He uses fire breath from Gugu and sets the pit on fire, which ends the knocker attack. The man in black's like, did it. There's only 3 knockers left, and of course, it's their
lion.
friends.
He's lying.
Oh yeah, I guess there's 4, isn't there?
Yep.
Yeah, I guess we do gotta talk about this scene. Hayase gets attacked by a knocker. It jumps into her arm. She catches it in the bicep. It gets a huge bicep and is like, "Oh, you're trying to get Fushi, huh? Yeah, me too. How you doing? Name's Hayase. I'm a Leo." And then gives it the advice: if you want to catch him, you gotta do it like me. You gotta be nice to him. You gotta capture him with kindness. And then rips it out and throws it, and it like walks away on its little tentacle legs into the ocean. Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And how she doesn't have a nearly dismembered arm at this point, I don't know.
I know, because she already had like a knife thrust through that arm during the tournament not that long ago.
By the way, the size of that blade looked like her arm should have been like hanging by a thread.
Yeah. Yep. 100%.
All right, so they set the pit on fire. She was at. Oh yeah, I did miss a scene. She saw Tomari and was gonna throw a knife at her, and Fushi jumps on her in bear form, and she's like, "All right, kill me, go for it." And he doesn't want to be killed.
When he lands on her, the amount of blood that spurted from her back. And he like landed like claws first into her back, and then his whole weight is on her on the ground, and she does not at least become incapacitated from this. Annoyed the ever-loving crap out of me.
Yeah, the only explanation that I could come up with, because it bugged the heck out of me too, was that it just looked like he was, and he didn't actually do it. Because he doesn't want to kill or hurt anybody, so he wasn't crushing her under his bare weight. I mean, maybe.
I mean, the amount of attacks that were near mortal attacks throughout this entire arc that she just gets up and is able to do whatever she wants to do just is mind-boggling.
Yep.
But anyways,
all right,
back to the story.
Corpse is on fire. Only the 3 children are the one infected left. They're like, what do we do with them? I don't want to kill my friends, but we can't save them. What do we do, Tamari? And then Hayase shows up, and she grabs Tamari and holds her over the fire pit. She's like, I'll kill them. Let me kill them for you, and then I won't kill this girl. And I'll be honest, I was kind of like, this feels like a win-win. I don't see a downside to this.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a problem. If you listen to that conversation carefully, at least in dub, she says, let me kill the children for you. I had a feeling she didn't just mean the 3 knockers. She, in my opinion, if he had said yes, she would have killed all 5 of them and said, "Oh, I just did what you told me to."
But he was holding her, or she was holding that Tamari hostage in order to get him to say yes. If she
Right.
meant
But
all
I
of
think
them.
she was playing word games with him at the same time.
Mm. Okay.
I don't know
But
if I
so
agree.
she knocks out both of these kids, by the way. So
Right.
they're
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they've been tranquilized.
And so yeah, she does this big villain monologue of "Let me do this. I know you want to remain pure. I want you to remain pure too," and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I just think
Let me be dirty girl for you.
Yes.
I think what Fushi's realizing is that there is a purpose to killing. I think that's what the resolution here is for him, is that he has to accept that to grow past where he is now. But anyway, Tamari wakes up and is like, "Screw this, we're going into the fire." Pulls them both in. Fushi jumps and manages to catch them both, and poisons Hayase with the sleeping dart that she's been using on him. Ties her up. Then he takes a sword from Tamari and he goes and he kills the 3 kids. Off screen, we don't see him kill them.
Yeah.
Then we get the village, or the islanders are taking care of the dead, cleaning up, and Tamari and Fushi are standing with the 3 dead people, and she explains how each of them were important to her, and it hit me like a lightning bolt. Oh my god, the 3 people that just died are to her what the 3 people who have died in the series are to Fushi. And I wrote it down.
Oh,
Upa, she was sold by her parents, but still was very kind. And we know the boy was abandoned by his village, but was still generous and giving to his dog and wanted to go meet them. Mia was her very first real friend, just like March was Fushi's first friend. And then Uroi was like a strong older brother to her. And those are her words. And at least in the dub, that's what she calls them. And I was like, oh, she just lost what we've watched Fushi lost and not be able to accept that he has lost. And then we see her get resolution from that and use it to move forward and grow, teaching Fushi to do the same thing. And I was like, okay, now I get why this character exists, even though she isn't as good as the character as others. And that's why this is the only time the character that Fushi connected to didn't die. The character he connected to went through the same thing he did, so he could see it from another point of view.
I like that.
I did not put that together. That is brilliant.
Yeah, me neither. That's really good.
I liked it. Felt good. I wrote it down and everything, and I don't usually do that. All right. Then the Islanders see these kids who died, and they all feel very, the ones that are there, they start crying because they're like, these kids died for us prisoners, and they don't deserve to be here.
I find that very difficult to believe, but yes, they did.
Right. Well,
It was an old dude. Come on.
yeah. Also, it's like 3 people that do it, but we're supposed to like infer that the entire island feels that way, and that's
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree.
At this point, Fushi's like, I'll stay on the island until I know the island's okay. So providing food and supplies for people. Tomari and the other boy decide to stay on the island and try to be leaders for it into a peaceful future.
Yeah.
How long is Hanase out for?
Right?
That's a great question.
Well, he can make those little vials, those little injectors, as much as he wants.
Just every time she wakes up.
Also, in the next episode, it's implied that it's been a while since he saw Purin. So this must be a chunk of time. This is not like the next day I felt like everyone had enough food and I left. He stayed until the island was stable again. So yeah, that woman's been tied up for quite a while. And also, the guards are looking for her. Hey, where's our boss? And they've been hiding her. Yeah, that was my one issue, because it felt like, oh, I'm leaving the next day in the scene he leaves, but also later it's clearly been time has passed, and so it doesn't add up.
It does definitely makes it feel like it's like that same day, but
yeah. So he gets in a boat. He says goodbye and he takes Hayase with him, and they sail off. And then Tamari.
This is like a 2-person rowboat, by the way. This isn't like one of their big ships.
Yeah.
Tamari sends the owl to be with him and take care of him. In the ocean, he asks Hayase, "What do you want?" And she's
You
like,
can't see land anywhere.
Yeah.
she
This
says,
is a great scene.
I want you. I'm in love with you. And we had inferred Tamari is also it's inferred is fallen in love with him too. That's why Jeremy is pointing out this is the love arc.
Yeah, she's the one that he's got to wait to grow up.
But also they were both. So he's in a 14-year-old body, and she is a 14-year-old girl.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, Hayase is like, I love you, and I want to teach you what love is. Give me one night, and I'll teach you about love.
Oh, you're
and
scary.
He's like, nope, that's terrible. And she's like, oh, and please kill me. I know you want to kill me. That would be the best, because then I will be part of you, and you could turn into me, and that would be just so. That's her ultimate goal. Is I want to be one with you. I want to be part of your menagerie here, and so.
But isn't it true then that like she's already succeeded? Because she's made a big enough impression on him that when she dies somewhere, no matter how she dies, she's definitely going to be one of his forms.
Right.
He can't escape that.
Except for maybe not because of what ends up happening to her next. So he makes a second boat out of his body. He jumps into it. He kicks her boat away, and he says, I have no idea where we are. You might want to figure it out, or else you're going to die out here. Bye. And he's
He
like,
also said, I hate you.
I hate you, and I won't feel anything when you die. And she goes, I know. He goes off. Once he's out of sight, the knocker that had been in her arm pops up on the boat, and then we just hear her screaming as it infects her.
Mm-hmm.
He goes and reaches a port and arrives where he is meant to be. I'm going to tell you about the middle. So around the final episode, and it's mostly about Fushi and Puran, and we're going to come back to them. I just want to make a note of we get one final scene of Hayase where a fisherman has found her. She's in a hut. We don't even get to see her, and he brings her food, and then suddenly like an arm grabs him and pulls him into the hut, and he dies. And that is why I called her Venom. The knocker and her have combined into one obsessed with Fushi creature.
Yep. Also, it occurred to me that knocker was following her and watching her. So basically,
and had listened to her.
And it's like, all right, let's see how she does. Oh, she failed. Gobble, gobble, gobble. Let's become one.
Which makes me wonder if she's going to be this anti-Fushi or very similar powers, like the how there's always there's Spider-Man and Venom, right? They have very similar powers. That very much feels like where they're going with this, where she's also going to be a immortal being now that she has this knocker in her who can shapeshift into whatever she manages to steal from Fushi. And so now there's going to be like this evil version of him out in the world who's also in love with him and wants to do things to him.
You know what's kind of creepy though? Because if that's the case, if you think about the knocker, the first time we see it come, it forms itself out of wood. And the next time it forms itself out of stone. Does that mean any other forms it takes next is just going to be these weird flesh monsters?
It is a flesh monster. It grabs stone in that second form. It's been flesh since the second time.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, it just grabs stuff at.
But you're right. It evolved from wood to flesh. We decided flesh was better.
Yeah, which is kind of weird because it couldn't become a living creature, but it can become flesh. And I think you pointed this out last time too, Jason, that like it can become fleshy. So it's kind of weird.
Fleshy. All right. So in our final episode is Fushi does find Puran, and he doesn't want to meet up with her. He just wanted to check on her, and then we get him being very indecisive about that because
it's adorable.
He's like, no, I'm gonna leave her. Oh wait, maybe she doesn't have enough money or food, so he goes back and sees like strangers being nice to her, and so he leaves some food for her. Then he leaves. He's like, oh wait, but she'll keep waiting for me. I gotta leave a letter. Oh wait, she'll get cold. I should go get her a coat. But she's gone when he goes to give her a coat, so he starts following after her.
And you know that these things, they're presented like they're taking place in the same night, but they're not, because when he goes and he leaves the food, the next time he goes and he leaves the letter, there's no food there. It's another night. So days are going by where she's getting stuff from Fushi.
Right. So he keeps making up these excuses of why he has to go back to help her. Now that she's gone, he tracks her down and sees her being harassed by someone who's like, "Oh, you're one of those prisoners," and she beats the crap out of that guy. And he's like, "Oh, I guess she doesn't need me." And eventually, he has a conversation with the man in black, and who points out, well, after being asked if he's the devil, points out that Fushi's lonely and says, she's dying anyway. It doesn't really matter what you do at this point. Fushi decides to leave a coat for her, but she catches him. And even though he looks like Mia, the redhead girl with a chair, she still knows it's Fushi and hugs him. And so they agree on some rules to travel together, which is, the knockers are nearby, which the man in black has agreed to warn them if it's ever close. If the knocker's ever nearby, they'll run away. Fushi always has to be the last to fall asleep and the first to wake up to be on guard. And so
Can't change into small animals if he doesn't know whether they're intelligent or not.
Right. So he doesn't lose his consciousness.
Real quick though, it really showed the immaturity still of Fushi and how he is a terrible liar, because when she catches him, he's like, "Look, I'm clearly a girl," implying a lot of things of you must think I'm a shapeshifter, and the person you're looking for is male.
I know what you're looking for, and it's not me.
Yeah, so they travel together for a month, and things are really good. They had this conversation about like what's her wishes, and she's like, I've led a good life. I had a grandchild. I got to meet an immortal. I'm satisfied and happy with my life.
I got the murder.
Got those 10 people from that horrible city.
But this is all being narrated by the man in black, but Purin starts to go senile and angry, yelling at him about not.
Is it partial Alzheimer's, do you think?
Seemed like dementia to me.
Yeah, because she kept forgetting like that she ate earlier.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so she keeps yelling at him, and he's having a hard time taking care of her. And like, she can't ride the donkey anymore because she keeps falling off. So he's got to carry her, but she's mad at him for carrying him. She's like, just leave me to die. And, like we said at the beginning, this is just really hyper realistic, but something that if you lived through that, if you've seen it, you can recognize what's going on here. And it's interesting because they play it very subtle, and they mention like he smiles every day, and the man in black's like, I don't know if he's smiling because he's experiencing something new, or if it's just like he's just reminding himself to be happy while going through a hard situation.
I think that harkens back to what he learned from Tamari, because she said smile when you're sad. That was one of her lessons.
Yeah. And then eventually they come to a stop, and Purin tells him that she's really happy that she got to meet him and be with him, and then asks him to go take care of some chores. And then while he runs off, she lays down and she talks to the man in black and is like, hey, if you're there, I'm ready to go. But I'd like, if you can, I'd like to be something more useful in my next life, that is more useful to Fushi. And the man in black appears to her and says, okay, but you'll change. Because if your form changes, who you are will change as well. And she says, that's okay. And we see her wake up on a beach, and she's young, and she's the girl from the OP, and she's touching her face. And then she turns, and he told her, before you go to paradise, find me. So she sees him, and he holds out the orb, and she touches it, turns back into her old self, and then goes into the orb. And then Fushi comes back and finds her dead in her old body, cries, goes. He's been writing notes to himself, which he then burns because he can just reprint them whenever he wants. And he goes to do it once, and she had written on it a note, and finds a note to make his own wish and make his own wish come true. And so he sets off, and the anime ends with decades have passed, and we see in his 30s, maybe even 40s at this point, Fushi flying through the air. So he hasn't shapeshifted in all this time, because we know he naturally ages if he doesn't. By a knocker, and then the knocker's dead, and he starts laughing. And that's how it ends.
As
so
this
that means
30-some-year-old dude.
Yeah. He's powerful enough to stay in what is arguably his weakest form.
Right.
And defeat the knockers now.
So, well, I love this ending, and it's a great way to end the season, not on a super cliffhanger, but with a lot to look forward to. What do you? We had mentioned, Jason mentioned at the beginning, every arc, it's a new arc for his character. He's almost a new character every time. So now we're about to have a totally new Fushi who has lived almost a full adult life now. He's the man in black even pointed out at this point he's got the mindset of a 14-year-old man. He has identity, he has self, but he's still like a teenager. We're about to meet a Fushi who is now decades aged, decades in experience of life, and is still going to continue traveling through time like we've watched. And what does that mean for him, and what does that mean for how we connect to him? So I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on, because season 2's coming. They said it's coming. What your guys' thoughts were?
I'm super excited because, like I said, they presented so many overarching questions about who the Man in Black is, what's going on at like a spiritual or higher level to this world. What are the consequences of Fushi winning or losing? Also getting to like see him learn new lessons, but adult lessons, and not just growing up lessons. I think is going to be fantastic. I'm super looking forward to the next season. And also, I will have to say, I cannot stand it when a story doesn't feel wrapped up. This very much feels like they wrapped up the storyline that they were telling and setting up enough to make you look forward to the next season. So really, really happy with the writing.
In a way, it almost feels like we just watched a prequel, and it was just a really well done prequel, right? Because ordinarily you'd get introduced to a character that has a lot of history, and then that would be revealed gradually, or we would come to understand that character through that. But in this case, even this background story of from rock from rock to 14-year-old, what he went through was very, very interesting. I wonder if that period of time that was several decades was boring. Maybe comparatively it was, maybe not. Whatever it was, we're going to miss it unless they start showing us flashbacks, which they may well do. And I don't know. Obviously, flashbacks are kind of, you don't know what you're going to get. It could be excellent, could be awesome. Look at My Hero Academia; it does flashbacks really well. In other cases, you have flashbacks that kind of can ruin things. I have a feeling they'd do a good job with this anime, just based on what they've done so far, if they chose to do flashbacks. But I do like the idea of a big reset where essentially we're coming to a character who is so different from where we left off that he might as well be a completely new character. And that'll be interesting. I did see the cover in passing of like one of the mangas from much, much later. And it looked to me like he was in modern clothing. And obviously he's immortal, right? So he's going to just keep going. But to think that enough time goes by at any point in his story where he actually comes to the modern time, I'm really interested in hearing about what's going on with this character. So I love it.
Here's a question for you real quick before you get into your thoughts, Troy. He gets blown off by this knocker, and he's still in the middle of the woods. Did he just decide to live in the woods for 20 years?
I definitely think that he is a hermit. 100%, I believe that.
Okay, so like socially, he may still be a bit stunted.
Yeah, I could see that.
I was just that really undercuts what I was going to say.
I'm so sorry.
No, I was going to preface it with it. I don't know if it's going to be this iteration, but I am looking forward to a Fushi character that is the wise character of the whatever story is going on. Whereas so far he's been learning from others. I'd like to see a story where his experiences is helping others. I think that'd be a really cool thing to watch develop. All right, we need to wrap up. Let's go to final review. I don't remember who picked this. Jeremy, what's your final review?
Yep, it was me. I really love this anime. I think they did an amazing thing here with the storytelling and making every character matter. Like I said before, the tournament arc was a little bit weak for me, but what you pointed out about it being sort of a reflection on his own losses when, what was her name, Tamari? I keep wanting to call her Tamale. When she lost her friends, that I think really adds to it. And just the whole dementia arc it just completely redeemed it. So in the end, I've got to give this half 4, but the whole season I got to give 5. Fantastic anime.
All right, Jason, what did you think?
I do partially agree with Jeremy that it wasn't as strong as the first half. It's a lower 5 for me, but it's still a 5, and it's a 10 for the whole thing. No,
That won't fit on the website.
Nope.
I know, right? No, I haven't had this much thought-provoking thought experiments done in such well-written storytelling and great characters in a long time. Yeah, it doesn't top ReZero for me, but it's definitely a 5. Must watch.
All right. For me, my scores are going to match Jeremy's. A 4 for this half, and then a 5 for the total thing. I think there was just a few, like the children showing up and stuff. There's a few things they let slide, and I do think, I think production. It's weird to have 20 episodes. There had to have been something with production on this one, which is fine. I still managed to tell a really good story. We've seen stuff suffer from production and not be able to do that. So a 4 for this half, but I do think this half served the first half, made it even better. So a 5 for the whole stuff. Great anime. While we won't do season 2 for the podcast, I will be watching season 2 once it's dubbed. All right. If you would like to share what you thought of the anime, feel free to reach out to us on our Twitter at Baka Podcast, or please visit our website, theanimebakaclub.com. There is a contact us link there, and it'll send an email to us. We hope to hear from you, or leave a comment wherever you found the podcast. That will also get to us. Whatever works best for you, we're happy to do. But also do please visit the website, because there's a lot of great artwork by Jeremy's wife. Oh my gosh, the anime characters she made for us are fantastic. I'm in love with them. So definitely worth going. And like Jeremy pointed out, we're probably definitely still in the beta phase. This is a hobby outside of our normal jobs. We put as much time into it as we can. We're still building it and looking to grow further in the future, but thank you guys all for your support that got us to this point where we could even think about doing something like buying a website. So thank you so much. All right, our next anime is Sonny Boy. I don't know much about it, except for in the description it says it's about a high school that gets lost into another blank void dimension, and then students start having powers. It kind of gave me like a Lord of the Flies vibe with that. I then went and watched the trailer, and I still wasn't sure what it was about. Everything I just described is clearly in there, but I can't really tell what's going on. But it seems to be well reviewed, and it looks interesting. I really want to watch 86. I think that's what it's called, but that Netflix bought it and hasn't put it on the site. So this is on Hulu right now, and it's current and looks interesting enough with a mystery that I'm looking forward to. So Sonny Boy is what we are watching next.
Sweet.
All right. With that said, look out next week for our mini-sode. We're bringing a mini-sode back. Otherwise, that's all we have to say. We need to say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
Pain promotes growth.
Sayonara.